Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Well, I have quite a lot in the slides. I'm not going to follow exactly what goes in there. You all can read it later. But I'm going to summarize what Selangor has done for the past 10 years. With the background in mind, the political situation from 2008 to now, and now, God, Alhamdulillah, thankful, from Tan Sri Khalid as our Chief Minister then. We had programs then, a lot, because we were like marginalized by the federal government, and we have had to have programs. I'm not so sure whether it's maqasidic, but definitely these are partly our political tools as well, and also to help the rakyat at the time when all of us realized that we have a big number of B40, meaning 40% is below poverty line. In fact, in Selangor, when the poverty line from garis kemiskinan for jabatan, the federal and the state differed. We had ours at 1,005, while JKM had it about 820, if I'm not mistaken. So Tan Sri practically raised the poverty line, and so we had a lot of poor people in our states. So up to now, we have about 42 programs, yeah, which initially under the first, Tan Sri, the first 5 years, we called it Merakyatkan Ekonomi Selangor, meaning that returning the wealth of the country, of the state, to the people, and later it was renamed as Initiative Peduli Rakyat. Yeah, I will only touch on the policies that affect the children. Yeah, we have 42 policies, but I'm going to just pick up some of the things that are seen as what we call sensitive child-sensitive social protection. From early on, we had schemes like TAWAS, that is Tabung Wawasan Anak Selangor, which is basically an amount of money, about 100 ringgit, when a child was born. Child born in Selangor from both parents who are Selangorians, or they have been living in Selangor for more than 10 years, and that is put into trust fund, and until they are reaching about 18, they will have about 1,500 as a fund, perhaps to help them go into education. Yeah, and then we had funds to help parents send their children for childcare, TASCA. We call it Bantuan Asuhan Rakyat, which is initially for groups of parents below 1,005, if I'm not mistaken. I think now it has been raised to 2,000. 50 ringgit per child, maximum 2 children will be subsidized 50 ringgit. If you see that is too much, I'm just summarizing it. Yeah. So every family can have only 2 child subsidized to make sure they go to the TASCA. It's called Program Sekembar. And we have also a preschool Tunas Harapan, also to help the lower income group pay for the preschool education. Yeah, it's also about 50 ringgit. And later we also have, within those first 5 years, Hadiah Masuk Universiti, which is 1,000 ringgit for the low social income group. Initially it was 1,005 as our garis kemiskinan. And later, remember, just before 2013 election, we went to Tan Sri and say, people are complaining, my pay is 3,000, but I got few children, so it's not fair. You know, some of them are 2,000, 3,000, but they have many children, some in colleges, some in school, they can't afford it. So Tan Sri raised it to 3,000 line, and that was one of the good policies, you know. So that was up to 2008 to 2013. Yeah, those are mainly to help in education. We also have tuition rakyat, whereby those children from the low income group and high risk group, they are given free tuition, yeah, under their respective state legislative representative. And that helps. From the statistics that we have been shown that their results are much better after getting attention for, but these are just for those going for examination, PMR, SPM, and now I think we have this PT, the one that's lower standard 5 tu, yang equivalent to UPSR tu. Yeah. Okay, and from 2013 onwards, there were addition to these programs, and this is more targeted to the younger children. We have scheme Peduli Sehat, which is actually a health card, 500 per family, and they use the card to go through for primary health care, yeah, to any clinics that has been registered with our government. And for individuals of low income group, they get about 200 ringgit. And recently, we added another 200 to the 500 for immunization programs, yeah, pneumococcal and other immunization. If they take it, we started for a short while with food stamp, I think hardly a year, but they had to scrap it because of implementation program. And we start with what we call Kasih Ibu Smart Selangor, basically identifying families with income less than 2,000 ringgit and with children lower than 21 years old. So in the application, they have to present to show that they have young children. And this is not cash. This is, they get a card which they go to identified shopping centers or shops where 19 items have been identified for them to get. It's for, basically for the children to tackle some issues of nutrition, but also other necessities for growing up children. They can even buy disposable napkins and all that, you know, but basically food items. Out of the 19 items, basically they're food items to address nutrition for food for the young age group. Yeah, this is very popular, and we are getting, it's pouring in. Unfortunately, now we have crossed the limit of our budget. The state government has said, I think, added another 10 million, and it has also depleting. And Adons are screaming at me now. They say, don't stop it now. So this is one of the things I have to pick up later. And there's another one which we call it the early intervention period, early intervention program. This early intervention program for now is basically grants to organizations which tackle children with special needs. Yeah, it can be Down syndrome, autism, dyslexia, and all. You know, we have. I think we allocated 3 million for them, but I think we have not consumed all. But I am looking at that in another way. After this, I'll explain the future, the way I'm thinking about it. Now, those are the specific programs that touch the children. Yeah, we know it's not sufficient, but I'm not so very happy because it is not for everybody, because we have this ceiling. Yeah, we have this ceiling when we finish the budget, and I think Selangor government is not willing to put any supplementary budget, and our budget has been in deficit for the last few years. So I think as administrators and the state treasury is reluctant to add more, and now Selangor is a bit elated because the federal government now is the same. They said now it's time for federal government to put back what they have not been giving us. You know, in fact, the last meeting, I was told to look into certain programs which they say is overlapping with some of the federal government's federal programs from LPPKN, as well as from Jabatan Pembangunan Wanita, which we will have to go and meet you all and see what we can do. And even some of the Kementerian Luar Bandar in Wilayah, Kemas and all those. So we have to look into all the programs so that we don't have this fragmented, you know, and overlapping programs. And we have to reevaluate the effectiveness of these programs that we are very well aware of, because Agreeably, I agree very much that we have to move from charity to development. Instead of just giving the fish, we have now to give them the rod. Addressing this problem of children basically is low-income group, yeah, and most of them coming from the low-income group. We have to think of how can we raise the income of each family, and we have to look into the women and also the men. But because I'm taking care of the women, I look into the women first. How can we raise? How can women raise their income? Yeah, and of course, training of trainers is up in my mind, especially now with the recent tragedy, where working women have to send children to people who are not trained or qualified. Yeah, and we have to relook even into the laws of the JKM laws, because some of them are not practical. For institutions and like TASCA and all that, they are institutionalized, they are well looked after, well monitored by JKM and all. Recently, JKM had a ruling whereby you can, home-based childcare, they say that it should not be more than 9 children, yeah, and you don't have to comply to the laws from JKM, and they make special exceptions. But later when I look at it, it's not workable. Why? Because 9 children, and suddenly they have another peraturan that says that if there's a ratio of the carer to the child. So if you have 3 babies, you have to have 1 child, 1 minder, and so on and so forth. So if you have a mixture, you're home based, you have a baby and you have a toddler, and then you have some. So therefore, you have to add additional babies. You have to have the carers. So if you have to take more people to look after the children, you are no more home based. Yeah, and that's why a PBT or the local council comes in and say you are not complying to the rules of making a child care center. So that they have to relook. But with what happened recently, we are more worried about people who have to send their children to people they don't know, out of desperation, and people who are on shift basis. So how do we tackle this problem? So after a few discussions, it's still in the jail state because we have to change a lot of rulings. We have to make a special ruling for this category of childminders who are not full-time childminders, but they have to be trained and they have to be registered with JKM, so that in future, if you want to send your children, your baby to a childminder, you can ring up JKM and ask whether this lady, this fella is registered or not, and what sort of training we have to decide, because they cannot take this KAP Cup kursus kanak pemata tu, because it's also too expensive. It's about 1,800 ringgit to get that. Institutions, yes, you can do it, but you have to pay on your own. So myself, in my own constituency, I sponsored them to take the course, because so that they can work after that. So we have to look into again how we help people to become childminders. If the fees is too expensive, the state will have to take up the policy of trying to subsidize their training, yeah. And so these childminders, we hope we can register them, we can train them, and we will have to look into what needs to be put into the training to qualify them to take care of children. And we have a new thing coming up. I think they have talked to JPW in Putrajaya, this Kiddo Care mobile nanny with the apps for you to choose the childminder, and a childminder can choose a family. Again, we are not sure yet what training they are providing. I am made to understand that JPW of Putrajaya has approved. But if they do, if we can really work on it, we will kill 2 birds. We will kill 2 birds with 1 shot. We will give jobs to people who are in the B40 group. But that way of sending children is very costly. 1 hour is up to 30 ringgit. The B40s can never afford it, you know. So it's okay for the people who can afford it, and at the same time give income to the B40s. And I was told that if they work 8 hours a day and for 20 hours per week, and they can get about 2,400 ringgit. But we have to think of how can we help them sustain, because they need transport to go and and all these are, we cannot just say that, okay, this program, and later on let them be. They can't. And we were asked that, can we arrange for them to have their own motorcycles so that they don't have to pay Grab when they want to go and childmind. But if we do that, then the problem of, motorcycling is not a safe thing. Yeah, and if it's raining, blah, blah, blah. So they said, can we connect it to Tekun? Can we get some fund from Tekun to buy a small car or to put a deposit for a car? So things like this is interesting. When we talk to people, they're suggesting it to us, yeah? And the next thing I would like to look into is the training of the trainers. When we talk about special needs children, we are not doing it in a holistic and in a systematic way. And our OKU is also categorized in a way that you cannot help them early, because they all lump into one group, yeah, and they go to one type of class where the physically disabled and the mentally delayed developmental and all are put together, and the teachers are not specifically trained. So what we have in mind, we want to develop a very simple screening instrument, which the family can do, the parents can do, to detect early. And once they detect it, maybe at birth at the hospital, we can give a small book, yeah, how to do your own evaluation of your children. And you detect early signs, the next line would be the specialist. Once you have the specialist, you identify what the problem is, you must have the next step. If you don't have the next step, you diagnose someone with hearing problem, you diagnose someone who is dyslexic, you diagnose someone who's autistic, and there's nowhere to go, they get very angry. So therefore, I would like to suggest later on to JKM that we have to reclassify our OKU into the group, so that these children will be identified early and directed to the right discipline. Yeah. So that is in a nutshell, very superficial, what Selangor has done, and inshallah will do. I don't know. I have to get the support from everybody to proceed to the next step. I agree. I don't agree with charity, because I think Selangor is full of it already. We have given cash, we have given time, we have given service. Yeah. For now, we have to move to empowering people, development, the way change their attitude, and I hope Selangor can spearhead, because we are smaller. Federal would take a longer time, because we have a large organization to take care of. So if Federal will help us, we do the pilot studies, and you can take off from there when we have some results from us. So that's all. Thank you for sharing.